It always started with a letter, elegant parchment, crimson wax seal, a symbol pressed deep into the red, two wolves around a tower. It was an invitation, an honor. Her Grace, the Countess Elizabeth Bathory, requests your presence at Kashtit's castle for an evening of celebration. Girls across the region squealed with excitement. Imagine being summoned by the most powerful woman in Hungary. A royal party, music, wine, gold-covered sweets, servants, silk. Fathers dressed their daughters in their finest. Mothers gave strict warnings to curtsy properly. And the girls? They dreamed of castles and candles and maybe catching the eye of a nobleman. But none of them ever came back. No one dared ask where they went. Because who questions a woman with blood on her hands and royal blood in her veins? You see, Elizabeth wasn't just any noble. She was untouchable, connected to kings, richer than bishops, smarter than most men around her, and far, far more dangerous. She didn't just host parties. She studied her guests, and once they crossed the castle gates, no one outside could hear them scream. They called her the Jewel of Kaktika. But those who knew better, those who'd heard the rumors, the whispers, they called her something else behind closed doors. Long before she bathed in whispers and fear, Elizabeth Bathory was just a girl, but not an ordinary one. Born in 1560 into one of the most powerful noble families in Hungary, her childhood was steeped in wealth, politics, and cruelty. She grew up in a cold stone estate, surrounded by tales of war and witchcraft. Servants bowed as she passed. Tutors taught her Latin, philosophy, and how to run an estate before she could even ride a horse. She was brilliant, sharp, too sharp, some whispered. But it wasn't just knowledge that shaped her. As a child, Elizabeth is said to have witnessed brutal punishments. Men flayed alive, women beaten senseless. And instead of crying, she watched, quietly, curiously. At the age of 11, she was engaged, yes, engaged, to a warlord named Ferenc Nadasti. He was older, meaner, a soldier drenched in battlefield blood, and when they married years later, he brought her a gift, a torture chamber. He showed her devices, iron maidens, spiked wheels, cages that dripped, and she didn't flinch. Instead, they bonded over it. He taught her how to punish disobedient servants, how to make pain last, how to enjoy it. When Ferenc left for war, he left the castle in her hands. That's when things got worse. No more boundaries, no one to stop her, and no more need for a reason, just power and silence. Behind the walls of her growing estate, a new Elizabeth was being born. Not the noble, not the scholar, but something colder, something that would one day make her name a curse in every village. At first, it felt like kindness. Elizabeth Bathory's castle became a sanctuary, a place where young village girls were invited to work, maids, companions, chamber servants. Parents felt honored. Their daughters would serve nobility, maybe even rise in status. But once the doors shut, they didn't open again. The castle, once a symbol of wealth, was now filled with silence. Not peace, just the kind of silence that follows a scream. At night, villagers claimed to hear cries carried by the wind. They whispered about the girl who left home and never returned. Then another and another. Inside, Elizabeth, was no longer just a noblewoman. She was something far worse. She devised rituals. She demanded loyalty. She watched girls suffer and wrote notes. A new helper, Anna Darvulia, arrived. A woman said to be part witch, part mistress, and fully devoted to Elizabeth's twisted cause. Together, they tested new methods: cold baths in the snow, burnings, biting, starvation, and always silence. The castle became a stage. Elizabeth would entertain guests with music, food, and laughter, while screams echoed from beneath the floorboards. Some nobles knew, some didn't care, because in those times, a noblewoman couldn't possibly be a monster, right? To the world, she still smiled, she still hosted, still ruled. But in secret rooms, her power grew alongside the pile of bones. And yet, no one dared question her. Why? Because fear can build walls higher than any stone. And her castle had plenty. You'd think no one would dare challenge a noble woman. But one man did. His name was Istvan Mekieri, a minor clerk in the court. Nobody powerful, just curious and deeply suspicious. He'd heard the rumors, whispers of missing girls, villagers terrified to even look toward the castle. He saw mothers cry, fathers beg, and silence spread like rot. So he asked questions. And the more he asked, the more afraid people got. Until one day, Istvan received an anonymous note. Go to the castle, midnight. You'll see it for yourself. Foolish? Maybe. But brave? Definitely. That night, he crept through the woods. The castle loomed like a beast, lit from within by flickering torchlight. Guards were strangely absent. The front gate? Unlocked. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. He moved through cold hallways lined with portraits of dead nobles, down staircases carved in stone, past doors that seemed to breathe. Then he heard it. Not footsteps, not voices, screams. From behind a locked door came the cries of agony, sharp, human, real. He ran, not away, but toward it. But before he could find the source, a hand grabbed him. A voice. Leave, now. You saw enough. He never saw the face, just the eyes. Wild, afraid, maybe even guilty. And just like that, he was shoved outside. He told the story to nobles, to judges, to priests. Most didn't believe him. Some already knew, but his words were enough to light a spark. And once fire starts in a place that cold, it spreads fast. It was supposed to be just another noble banquet. The Countess had invited over a dozen wealthy guests, lords, magistrates, even the Archbishop's cousin. The grand hall was lit with chandeliers. Music echoed through the walls, wine flowed, laughter danced. But this time, there was one uninvited guest, a royal investigator. He didn't wear armor, he didn't bring soldiers, he brought warrants, signed by the king. As the feast reached its peak, the music stopped. The investigator stood, raised his hand, and read the charges. Torture, murder, disappearance of over 50 servants, conduct unbecoming of a noble family. Silence. Then, chaos. The Countess laughed, coldly, and then lunged for a hidden blade. But before she could move, her guards turned on her. Turns out, they'd been bribed. she screamed, not like a villain, but like a child caught in the dark. And for once, the castle echoed with justice. What followed wasn't a trial. It was an exorcism. The court stripped her of titles. The people tore down her banners. The castle's gates were chained shut. No one knows exactly what happened to her. Some say she was imprisoned. Others say she disappeared during the night. But the castle, it still stands, rotting, empty, and echoing with what once happened inside. Today, travelers avoid it. Birds won't nest there. And the locals, they just call it the House of Red Banquets. And that, dear viewer, is what happens when power feasts on blood. Sometimes the ghosts are quieter than the screams.